Welcome to the London Horror Movie Club. I'm horror writer Lauren Jane Barnett.
And I'm Chris Sapikowski, Lauren's older brother, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 8.
Join us as we talk about the wild, weird, and wonderful horror films set in England's eerie capital. Welcome back, London Horror Movie Club. This month, Chris and I have indie actress Georgie Harriet King. She works on stage as well as in film, including recent horror films like The House That Zombies Built, Mosaic, which was just at Horror and Sea, as well as Horoscopes 2. And she's also in an upcoming mind-altering science fiction called When the Sun Stands Still. Welcome, Georgie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with the big, broad question of why acting? What drew you to it?
Oh gosh, you know what? I've always been a bit odd. And I think it's the neurodivergence in me that I'd always try and figure out how conversations work and how people tick. And acting felt like a really great way to go into a situation where there were loads of rules in a conversation, but everything was scripted, so everyone knew the rules. Whereas I think with often social situations, it's like, oh, there's loads of unspoken rules and I don't know how to follow them. So acting was always a great way to navigate that.
Awesome. Do you prefer movies or do you prefer on stage?
I used to always prefer on stage, and then the minute I got into film, that was it. Film is definitely the way forward.
What is it about film then?
I think you can explore a bit more. I mean, the majority of theatre that I did was musical theatre or pantomime. And don't get me wrong, I love a set of jazz hands. But there's something about exploring a character that's a bit more in depth, and you can really put a nice process behind that. And the people you get to meet as well. I think theatre is very competitive often, whereas film sets, it's just this big collaboration of like, let's chuck loads of paint at the canvas and see what sticks.
Very cool. What was your first foray into the films? Like, what was your first film that got you hooked?
So I did a film called The House That Zombies Built, and I was so excited. The zombie films are my jam. Like Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland, they're all So being able to do that and kind of play a really fun character with that, I played a really moody teenager. That was really the one that kind of made me go, I want to do this like for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Nice. So are zombie films then, were they your favorite horror film when you were growing up?
I think so, yeah. I mean, my dad and I, when I was like really young, like a lot younger than I should have been, we used to sit and watch like zombie films together. And I was never particularly scared of them. I just found them really fun and really interesting. I play a terrible zombie. It's horrendous. I played my first zombie and the director turned around to me and was like, that was something. I was like, how bad was it? He was like, it was there.
Oh my god.
How can you play a bad zombie though? I've seen so many zombie movies, and let's be honest, it had to be at least in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know. Like looking back on it, it probably was quite bad. But I still said to the director, "How do you play a zombie?" I'm at the time I was like young and had a lot of like self-respect. Now I have none, so it's a lot easier. But like they was just like, think of like the person that you're about to eat being your favorite food, and I've got flustered. I don't know, like you're a sandwich. What is, you know, it's just a bit awkward.
That's a far cry from the bad advice that everyone gives, like, picture the audience naked. Picture the audience as a sandwich.
Then it gets stressful. Then you're like, you're like, what kind of sandwich? Like, what there's so many to choose from. Like, what? It gets stressful, you know.
I'm gonna watch Zombieland now and be like, that person was thinking spaghetti. They were thinking spaghetti and meatballs the whole time.
Was that one of your? Oh, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, was it a quick zombie? Was it a fast zombie, or was it a slow zombie movie? I haven't seen the film, so I apologize.
It was. No, you're okay. It's not actually out yet, so that's totally fine. It was slow turning zombie, and it's a bit of a weird situation. So it was sort of midway through like an intimate scene. Yeah, it was extenuating circumstances, so you know there's a lot of character development behind this particular zombie.
Okay.
Yeah.
A well thought through zombie. I gotta say, that sounds like a pretty interesting take. Was that one of your, like, those moments on set that you'll remember forever because it was your first one, or?
I think so, yeah. And you know what? Interestingly, you had Andy Boothby on before. That was the set that Andy and I met on. We've really sort of worked together quite a lot now. And yeah, it was very funny because at this particular point, Andy was sort of straddling over myself and another actor, and I'd met him like a day prior. So it was definitely one of those sets that, yeah, I won't forget it anytime soon.
Crash course, just full on into the experience.
Exactly.
Well, I was looking at IMDb at some of the movies that you're in, and I always, one thing I love about horror movies in general, and especially the indie scene horror movies, are the titles of these movies. So, like, I am all in on Rapunzel's Revenge. How this hasn't been thought of beforehand, like, I want the Disney princess, the fairy tale princesses to turn. Like, I want that sounds, that's going to be classic. You have Zombikini is what I'm seeing here, which it just sounds like a movie that when I was 13 and my parents were like, pick out whatever you want for tonight. I'm like, this one, it's a zombie movie, I swear. Like, it's going to hit all the highlights. So, like, these are great things. Now, as Rapunzel's Revenge and Zombikini, are these are out now, or are these still in pre-production or post?
So currently, Zombikini has started filming. It stalled for a little while. It's back to filming again now.
Okay.
Rapunzel's Revenge is in pre-production. We start filming in the next few weeks, which is very exciting.
That sounds amazing. Do you want to tell us a bit more about what you're going to be doing and what it's like?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, Zombikini does exactly what it says on the tin. It's zombies in bikinis. It's very silly, which I really like from horror films. I feel like I like some horror films that are a bit more serious, but most of them, it's kind of like if it's a horror comedy, it's great vibes. But yeah, Rapunzel is it's a bit of a comedy. Edgar Wright is my muse. Absolutely love the man. Love the way he writes and works. So I like to think of it a kind of Edgar Wright style. There's a few like turns to camera and like it's really nice. But yeah, it's based between a modern day prison and like a medieval fantasy kind of vibe, which should be quite fun. You know, the hardest part is sourcing where to get all the hair from. It's like production have been finding it really hard to be like, how do we navigate putting this much hair in like a film and then taking it off? And yeah.
Wow. Is it going to be hair?
Well, this is the thing. Like, I don't know what they plan to do. I'm sort of just leaving it to the magical producer that does everything, and then I turn up and go, oh wow, that's there. But yeah, I believe they're kind of looking at getting like a couple of wigs and making them attachable and detachable, so you can kind of move around and clip bits everywhere. Yeah,
interesting. Okay, I never even thought about that would be difficult to be like, where do we come up with 16 feet of hair?
This is the thing. Fight scenes, blood, not a problem. Hair, it's a real stalling point.
Maybe you just go with the I keep, because my kids are now teenagers, but that Rapunzel Tangled movie came out. Maybe you go the short hair Rapunzel and it's just a whip of hair, and so then you can fight people with a whip of hair.
That would, that's a go-to.
Be easier for you.
That's a good idea. I like that.
When you choose these acting roles, do you get to like, because I know indie's not like a normal movie, you get a lot more input. Do you get to be a part of this process of making the character beforehand too?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was quite lucky that I got brought on to write this project, which was really, really nice. And then once it was written, they kind of went, you know what, we want you to play Rapunzel. We can't really see anyone else doing it, which was really nice of them and totally like blowing smoke up my bum. But it was really lovely to kind of get as much input on this character as I have. Because I think sometimes you take on certain characters, you're like, oh, this would be amazing in here, but equally you're there to do a job, and if the director has a vision, you kind of have to sit back and go, yeah, you do it. But as you said, like independent horror, the amount of input you get is incredible. And often directors are so open to going, yeah, you do this, you do that, that's absolutely fine. And yeah, it's great.
Did you got to write? You said you helped writing on this one. Did you get bit by the writing bug? Is it something that you see yourself doing more? Or do you want to stick kind of in front of the camera?
So I've written a few projects before Rapunzel, and I think it was something that it was just a necessity. There just wasn't the work out there, and I was like, you know what? If it's not there, create it for yourself. Like, write a scene, write a film, go out and film it. So it was really nice to kind of get back into that again. I shut myself away in my room for a couple of days and just, hashed it out. So yeah, it's definitely something I enjoy doing. I'm trying to like take a step back from it a bit more now and take on other projects. But I've never turned down a bit of writing. It's always fun.
Okay, awesome.
What style of things do you write? Because I know there's been another short that you wrote as well, which I think was horror too.
Yes. There's a couple of honestly, mostly it's horror. It's just so much fun to shoot and so much fun to work with. I've kind of, before I got into the industry, I live with my nan, and she was very much like, don't do horror films. I was like, why? She was like, because you don't know what they're going to be like. You don't know what people are going to think of them. And I was like, but they're fun. And now she's like, you should do like a romance film or something. She's like really trying to like get me out of horror. Because like a lot of the stuff that I do, for some reason, there's a lot of like sex in it. And I'm not that I'm nude in anything, but there's a lot of nudity in the film. So I'm kind of like, stay at home for this one, Nan. You don't need to see that one. So all she sees is me like being axed off or killing someone else off. And I think she's like, do a bit more romance. But horror is just so fun. Like, if you're not covered in blood at 3 a.m, then what's the point?
Seems to be an ongoing trend with the people we speak to, is like you've got to really like, not that it's odd, but like it is different than the mainstream, right? So it's like if you don't love it, it would be work at that point, where now it's like a passion. It's something that you really enjoy. So that's great. Will you be singing in any? I know you said you did musical theater. Any plans on doing a musical horror, or would you be open for that?
Definitely. You know what? It's something I've talked about for years, and every company I've worked with, I've been like, can you please do a musical horror film? Like Anna and the Apocalypse is genius. It's one of the best films. It's totally cheesy, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, it's naff, but it's so much fun. Yeah, definitely. That would be really fun.
Would you ever want to write that one then? Do you write music at all?
Yeah, I am naff with music. I could sing it a little bit, but terrible at knowing what it means or how it works.
That's fair. You've done such a huge mix of things. How do you pick what you want to work on?
I will be brutally honest. I don't as such. If I get the opportunity, I go, yep, great, I'm on it. Let's go. I don't like turning stuff down, even if it's like I'm not sure if I like it or not. I just like to experience it, and then afterwards I'll go, oh no, I really didn't like that. Which is few and far between, to be fair.
Now, I have asked this question a lot. Like, since you're saying yes to kind of everything, does it ever, between shooting an outdoor or indoor, do you have a preference to where you're shooting?
Ooh. There's something really adventurous about shooting outdoors, especially in like a public place. There's something really like nerve-wracking but quite exciting about that. But equally being indoors, especially in the UK where it's freezing all the time, yeah, that's quite nice. It's quite nice to have like creature comforts around you.
Right. Temperature control would probably be it kind of seems to be the going trend there.
Exactly. Yeah. But to be fair, I did a film last year, and we were in this cafe, and it had all these glass windows. And production had put like posters up just saying, if you're walking past, please, could you like keep the noise down, because it, our microphones pick that up quite a lot. Not expecting the public to listen, to be fair, but then we had this couple outside who stood beneath the sign having this blazing row. And then looked in the window and started banging on it to all of us, going, are you famous? Are you famous? We were outdoors and indoors at the same time. It was fab,
I was gonna say you were just in Python, which has had bits that you film indoors and bits that you film outdoors. Which one did you prefer for that one? I'm willing to guess that it wasn't the tent in the rain, but I want to hear.
Yeah, you know what? The tent in the rain, it was a very fun scene to film. The rain and the tent falling over were not the best parts of it, but everyone on set was so lovely that it did make it bearable. Like it was fun, and I loved that at points I remember like we were both there and we were like holding the sides of the tent up and pushing the rain off and go, right, go again, let's go. It was one I was happy to get home and have a bath afterwards, but yeah, it was good fun.
So what you filmed in different locations. Do you have a location that you've not filmed in that you're like, that's a bucket list. I've got to film this location?
There are far too many. My partner, bless his heart, will be driving around. I'll go, stop the car. And I have to go and look at this place. I'm like, I have to film here. We have to write a film and make it here. And I mean, ADHD vibes, it doesn't happen. But I've got like a whole list of places where I'm like, we have to like go in here and film here. And yeah, there's tons. I'm quite lucky where I live. There's loads of like little villages around, and there's this Norman church. It is absolutely stunning. And I keep driving past it, sort of going, maybe I could just nip in and see if I could like film in there. So yeah, there's quite a few on my bucket list.
Okay, so the church is one that's kind of up there right now. Of you keep seeing and it keeps ringing the bell.
Definitely, yeah. I think I tend to kind of focus on, if I'm working on a certain project, I'm all consumed by like, so for example, Rapunzel, I'm all consumed in like medieval style stuff. So like we've got a castle around near us called Stansted Mount Fitchett Castle. And it's this, they've recreated this medieval settlement. We went and did a location scout around it, and it was just amazing. And instantly I was there, I was going, please, can we film here? Please, like, let us in. Yeah, so at the moment, medieval's kind of my jam.
That's cool.
That you were very recently at Horror RNC, and you had 3 different movies that were on there. Is it strange sitting in the audience watching yourself on screen in these films?
Yeah, I think it was actually, because I'm really lucky to have done a fair amount of work now within the film, like indie film industry. But I haven't really seen much come out. So these were the first kind of projects I'd seen that I'd worked on and had been in. And you film it such a while before that you kind of forget what you've done, even though you remember it. You're like, oh yeah, what did I do? Especially with Python, like I played this really Essex receptionist who was like really gobby and uninterested. And I had like a few people afterwards who were like, oh, it was you. I didn't recognize you. Which is always a bit strange, a bit funny. But yeah, it was a really great experience, but it does feel weird, like watching yourself. I mean, you must feel the same way, right? Like seeing it up on the screen.
I just heard bright pink. I just was like, so embarrassed. So you made me feel better that it's not just me.
No, oh my gosh, no, it's not just you. It's always that weird moment, isn't it, where you're sort of thinking, I know it's me, but I'm playing someone else. But does everyone just think that that's me? Does everyone think that's how I behave?
I had that thought when we did Rabbit. So for viewers who don't know Rabbit, Georgie and I were in this film where half of the film we play like these mad villagers who are attacking this poor man, and it's not like we have dialogue. We're just like animals going at this person, and you're sort of like, oh my god, I'm a nice person.
I don't actually want to stone someone to death, you know? Like it's not my Saturday night hobby, I promise.
And if it is, you wouldn't tell people anyway. So, like, no. Let's be honest. It could be. It could still be.
Honestly, that's the crowd to tell someone.
They'd probably be like, oh, can I film it?
Yes. Do you? Okay, so I totally get the, like Lauren said, like just being embarrassed or like, kind of, that would be my hurdle to get over for sure. But do you find yourself more nervous in a setting like Horror on Sea when there's an audience there, or do you find yourself more nervous kind of the night before a shoot begins?
I'll be honest, I don't think I've had anything that I've been like a lead in enough to be worried too much when going to a festival. And to be fair, everyone at Horror on Sea is so lovely that even if it did go completely wrong and it was awful, I wouldn't be too worried about them going, "You were naff," because they're all so nice. I think when I've not worked with people before, I get quite nervous before a shoot. Not because I think they're going to be horrible, because I'm worried I'm going to be weird and like mess everything up. But yeah, I think mostly it's the excitement overrules any nervousness that's there.
Totally. And I know that you must have been, it's sort of weird combination of nerve-wracking and really familiar. You just did a shoot, please tell me if I'm wrong, Andy and you guys did it, and it was in like a day or a weekend? You did the whole shoot?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was great. I got sent, so Andy messaged me on the Wednesday and was like, "Look, I want to do a film in 24 hours." I was like, "Are you mad?" But also I'm in. And yeah, he worked with Grace and Mikhail, who are a wonderful husband and wife duo who camera and direct. That they're brilliant. But the night before, we went to shoot in Camber Sands, which is these beautiful sand dunes by the seaside. And the night before, Andy sends me this monologue and goes, "I need you to be off script for this tomorrow." And I was like, "You're funny. Like that's the good one." Like a page and a half of dialogue. And he was like, "No, I'm being deadly serious. I need you to learn this." And you know what? We got cracking and we did it, and it was really, really fun. The sun was so hot though. So we were walking up and down these dunes. Obviously, you don't get good footing. So we were climbing up and down these sandbanks. And by the end of the day, my shoulders were like red raw. Everyone was covered in sunburn. But it was great. It was so much fun.
Have you always been able to like in school? Were you able to memorize things? I mean, how hard is a page? You get a page of dialogue the night before. That to me is like, okay, well, I'm out. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Has that something that's come easy to you over the years, just being able to memorize? Or
when it comes to acting, I think because it's like my interest, it's not. I don't find it really difficult. I more get stressed out that I'm going to cause other people stress by not knowing it. But overall, it's always been something I've been okay at. If you'd asked me to memorize like a shopping list or something, something to do with maths that I'm not interested in, I've got no hope. You could give me 5 years to learn it and it would never happen. But yeah, dialogue, it's always kind of been an easier thing for me.
do you prefer a director or someone who's written a script to write every single piece of line, or do you prefer to ad lib a little bit?
I think it depends on the writer. I think that some people very much write as kind of, this is the guideline for the scene and this is kind of what I want the character to be like. And then there's other people who write exactly how they want the character to speak, and there's all little all things like that, like saying or ooh or ah, and then I quite prefer it like that. But I like to ad lib little bits in, and I'll usually find a way to kind of put a spin on a character.
Yeah.
When you also played a character that doesn't talk at all in When the Sun Stands Still, was that really bizarre because you didn't have the language there to help you with it?
It was really interesting because at the time I was in a pantomime, and pantomime is really exaggerated and big, and you're like, "Oh, hello boys and girls," and everything's on the ceiling. So to then bring it down and actually have no words to be able to convey anything, I was really nervous on that shoot, because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be really over exaggerated, and but actually it was a really nice experience to not say anything and have to say everything with facial expressions and kind of movement. It was really fun, really interesting.
That would be difficult to me. Like that's amazing. I find it amazing that people can, that you can do that. Like that's a skill set that you have, because I would just freeze. I'm horrible at Pictionary. I'm horrible at anytime you have to describe anything game wise. So what is your favorite? So kill scenes are one of my favorite things about horror movies. What's your best kill scene you've had?
Oh, that's a really good point. You know what? I play victim so much. Like I've got a baby face in horror. And the amount of people that are like, "Oh yeah, you look really good dying." Like it's such a, I don't know whether to be insulted or thankful, you know. So I don't actually know if I've really axed anyone off properly. I'm trying to think. I did. My partner and I, like 6 months after meeting, we did a short film together. It was a really great concept. It was like a world building kind of concept, and he played this sort of Romanesque soldier, and I played this like slave character. And I ended up like stabbing him, but it was in this moment where it looked like we were about to kiss, and then just straight through his stomach. And his family met me like 3 times before, and then I showed them this film, like, here's me stabbing your son. That was quite fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Do you have
What's the best way that you've died?
Oh, can't think. That's really bad. I'm so sorry. You know what? I tend to get beaten up a lot. I did a project called The Art of Abuse, and there were like 16 fight sequences, and all of them were just me being like kicked or like hit over the head. Or it was great. Like I signed up for it. It was so much fun. But it was like a really dark film as well. And that, like, I ended up I feel like this is the place to tell this story. We went out to Ireland, and there was a lot of, like, I played a hostage, so I ended up being like chained up to a bed quite a lot. And this one scene, I was chained to the bed, sort of my legs sat off the side of it and my hands up on the headboard, and I had these handcuffs on. And sets are quite busy places, and the producer was really busy. Everyone was just running around doing everything, and I have a lot of admiration for crew because it's so crazy on sets. So I didn't want to be a pain, and I was being very British. I was just like, it's fine, like I can't feel my hand, but it's all good. And I've still got nerve damage in my little finger. I can't properly feel it. That was in like September 2022, and I won't go to the doctor. Because could you imagine that conversation? I've known this doctor since I was 5. Oh, I can't feel my finger. Oh, right. Okay. How did that happen? Well, I was handcuffed to a bed. Right. No, but for a film. Oh, that kind of film. No, for a horror film. Oh, that kind of horror film. You know, there's no way around it without sounding like I do adult work. So
Chained to a bed in Ireland. That kicked off the story. Wow. Yeah, your doctor would have story forever for that one.
Right?
Do you have on the flip side, do you have a way that you'd like really love to kill someone on screen or die on screen? Do you have like a bucket list?
So Rapunzel really ticked a lot of those things off. Some of the kill scenes in that are fun. We went with like really medieval vibes for it. So there's like a flaying, someone drinks molten gold and dies, and it like oozes out of a wound. That's fun.
I'm starting to see why your nan wants you to do a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Like maybe
I just need one that she can watch and show to her friends, and then I'm set. You know, I can do what I want after that.
You just make sure it's a romantic comedy. It turns into like a horror movie at the end, so she can see the first half, and then it's interlude, and then just chaos.
This is the weird thing, though. She loves horror films, so we'll sit and watch loads of them together. I made the mistake of watching Saltburn with her. And I'd heard, like, you know, oh, there's scenes in it that are really inappropriate, but obviously independent horror, there's a lot of stuff where you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's new. Like, I've seen a lot of weird stuff from horror films, so I was like, how bad can it be? And it got to the bath scene just before it, and we were like, this is the controversial. Okay. And I sat next to my nan like, oh, this is very close for comfort, isn't it, Grandma?
That's the type of movie that I don't know if you've seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they have like the robot and people like they comment on old 70s campy movies, sci-fi. These are the type of things that I want to show the behind the scenes of, like sitting next to somebody you shouldn't be sitting next to. I saw Superbad with my father-in-law, So like
Oh,
Superbad being like, so my father-in-law was sitting right next to me as Jonah Hill and Michael Cera are doing the teenage. And so like, I feel like I have that, like you want to just sink in your chair and like, don't laugh at this scene or like, oh God, this is really uncomfortable. But Saltburn was great because I told my wife, I said, you probably won't like it. I just know what she likes, the movies she likes. And I was like, really weird. I don't think you're going to like it. And my daughter is in high school. Like she's 17 and she's like, yeah, it was kind of strange. I was like, oh my God, she saw that movie. Like I was like, I'm a horrible parent. And I didn't have to watch it with her. So I can't imagine.
you know, it's so scary how much kids see nowadays though. Like obviously working in horror, I'm not particularly fazed by a lot of stuff. So there'll be sometimes where I'm talking about something, I'm like, oh yeah, you're a bit young to like watch that. But I teach singing to a couple of groups of kids, and they're all different ages. And they're like group of 7 to like 12-year-olds. One of them had found my IMDb online, and they were going through it going, what's this about? And what's this about? And they were clicking on, or like watching videos online of different bits and bobs. And I was like, please don't watch this. You're really young. And they're like, oh, but I've seen it, and I've seen The Haunting of Hill House, and, you know, all of these really like kind of scary films. I remember being terrified as a kid of it. And they were just like, oh yeah, I thought it was a bit naff. But we're building a different breed, I'm telling you. It's scary.
Yeah, they're jaded. They're jaded for sure. Like,
yeah.
but then again, they're also at the age where, not to go off on a big tangent, they pull out their cell phones if anything bad's happening. And like, so it's a different mindset altogether. Everything happens on a screen. Nothing's actually real. So,
I think
but sorry, that's a tangent for a different podcast completely.
No, but I mean, I think every generation has that, because when we were talking about it, we grew up with like Labyrinth and Return to Oz, which are really screwed up kids movies, and we were like, yeah.
Nothing wrong with a creepy man in tights.
David Bowie forever.
Hell yeah.
You'll have nightmares once a month from that scene. Just can't do it.
When you were little, what were because you said you watched them when you were younger, Chris and I did too. What were some of your first horror movies then?
You know what? The first proper one was The Grudge.
Whoa.
I did not sleep for a month.
Wow.
It was horrendous. Like I don't know why I did it to myself. I was the sort of kid that would not go upstairs on my own if the light was turned off, because I was like, no, I'm gonna die. It's you know, it's what's gonna happen. So I started watching The Grudge, and the minute she like came out of the loft, I was like, no, turn it off. I don't think I've gone back to watch it since.
Oh.
So I need to sit through that one. Case 39, that was that's
the Renee Zellweger, right?
Yeah, that was I really liked that one. That was when I was a bit younger. That I was like, oh, actually, that's quite a cool like story. I'm trying to think what other ones. Honestly, mostly like zombie movies, like I'd say Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland. I think we watched the actual Dawn of the Dead as well together, and The Crazies. That was a good film.
Oh, The Crazies. That's a good. Yeah. I don't think that one's been said before.
Oh, really?
I think this is a new one.
Hey.
Yes. Shaun of the Dead seems to always be one that's on the top of people's list. And that's actually what got Lauren and myself into actually doing the podcast. She had a podcast going and she was like, come on. And it was about London. And I'm like, Shaun of the Dead. I've seen that 1,000 times. I could talk about that at any time, you know? But so Shaun of the Dead was the intro into that. But yeah, that's The Crazies is a good one.
It's fun. But you know what, Shaun of the Dead, my dad and I love playing Airsoft. So we really enjoy playing it. And love Shaun of the Dead. So we started writing an Airsoft zombie comedy about a group of airsofters that end up in a zombie apocalypse. They don't realise it's not a zombie game. Zombies with super mushy heads, so you can like use a BB pellet and it will actually kill them. It's so silly, but Shaun of the Dead is a great catalyst for everything. It's the beginning and the end, you know.
And I would see it. I would see that movie with its airs. I could see those groups of people like super into it. Like like this is their war, they're out there,
Hell
and then it's
yeah.
like it's just a game, and then
It's
happen to be zombies.
honestly, it's the stupidest thing ever. But the thing that got us started was thinking of really stupid call signs for people. So like everyone has that. Mine's typecast because I'm always typecast as a victim. Are usually gifted to you. But we had people like Cetamol because it's the closest thing to a para he'll ever be. Like really silly things like that. But it's good fun to write.
Do you often write with other people, or do you like to write on your own?
I tend to like getting a plot together with other people and then going, cool, I'm gonna go off and write this now. But equally, there'll be times where if I'm sat with Andy and we'll go, oh, this is a great idea, let's write it down, and we'll end up putting dialogue together. So yeah, a nice mix of both, I guess.
Nice.
How many things are you working on at any given time? Sounds like you got your hand in a few different pots. So what is the normal amount?
Usually there's always like one project that's just going on forever. And it's just running in the background, and then there'll be a few kind of sprinkled in on top. So I'd say maybe 4 at a time. Okay. And kind of just jump in on different bits and bobs as they come. It used to be a lot less, but I went full time into acting, and then it was really a case of if I'm not working on someone else's project, I have to be doing something myself, otherwise I'm not gonna progress in any way.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, you recently started working with an agent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. How are you as a sort of indie actress? How are you finding it different? What can people look forward to if they want to get into this?
I think it feels a lot more like people paint the picture of when you say I want to become an actor. Indie work, it's really homegrown, and you'll randomly get a message on a Friday night from an indie director you've worked with saying, hey, I haven't spoken to you in ages, do you want to be in this project that we're doing? And you don't have to self-tape. It's just a thing of like, I've seen you in this, or I've worked with you before, let's get cracking. But I think more so with kind of other work is a lot of taping involved, and it's very formal. Usually like if I get a message from someone saying, hey, you interested, it's like, dude, sign me up. But with this, it's like, I've got to speak to my agent, and I'm naff at all of that. If someone offers me a project, I'm like, yes, I'm in, let's go. So it's kind of difficult being a bit more professional, but it's good fun. It's a really interesting side of the industry.
Does the auditioning process ever wear on you more so with if an indie director is calling you up and saying, hey, we've seen you in these 3 things and we really want you to be in this would be perfect, as opposed to like, let me go talk to 3 people here in this room and show them what my idea is for the script? Is that harder?
I think I find it not frustrating as such, but it's definitely I feel like indie directors have the right idea, because if they've seen your work or they've seen like your show reel or something like that, they'll either get you to do like a self-tape just to see if you're right for the character, and then they're like, great, let's get you in, or they'll just take it at face value and be like, yep, let's hire you. With I say bigger productions, but even on like casting sites, I'm a casting site called Star Now. There's a thing now where you have to pre-screen. So you send off your application. They haven't seen your show reel yet, and you have to pre-record your self-tape. And I don't mind, but equally I'm kind of like, they don't even know if I'm going to be suitable for it yet. So I would wait and see what their profile looks like and then do a self-tape. Because it can be quite time consuming if you're applying to like 15 jobs in one hit and you're having to self-tape for each of them. It can get a little draining.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah.
How is it because I've only ever done auditions on stage, and you've got at least someone in the room. It's weird that you're trying to make it work, but there's someone in the room. What is it like, and how do you get yourself in the right headspace for doing a self-tape? Because that must be very lonely. It's
I think being someone who got into acting more so during COVID, I find it a real creature comfort to do a self-tape. I don't think I'd fall apart in an audition room, but I think I'd be a lot more nervous, especially if I'm terrified of London. I'm so bad at travel. I'm a right little country bumpkin, like grew up opposite a farm, and I don't do like trains. So I feel like I'd be a lot more stressed in an audition room. But yeah, taping, I mean, often it's just me with my little backdrop pretending there's someone behind the camera. So it's nice when you've got like readers, like if my partner's reading or if I'm like on a Zoom to someone and they're reading in for me, that's always quite nice. I think it's just a case of reading the script as much as possible. I'm a massive I find I connect more with the scene if I listen to music that like relates to it. So I'll sit and listen to a bit of music beforehand and kind of get into the zone.
What kind of music gets you into the zone for zombie movies? Like what are you listening to?
Ooh. I like a lot of contrasting music. So if it's a really sad scene, I like a really like happy song. I can never remember the word for it, but there's like it's supposed to create like a weird effect on the human brain or something like that. I really like When the Man Comes Around by Johnny Cash. It's such a like zombie. I feel like it's been used. There's a film that it's in. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's at the end somewhere. But yeah, I quite like the contrast. Like, have you guys seen The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you know where I think it's the season that Negan's in, and they play this song. And it's like we're on East Street, and it's like a really like dark part, like that kind of vibe. So I like the kind of contrast there. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I got to know, we've mentioned your Nan a few times. What is the ideal sitting with my Nan horror movie? What is the dream? Grab your Nan, watch the horror.
Oh, that's a good point. I think she'd really like Midsummer.
Oh, okay.
I haven't quite like got her sitting down long enough to watch it yet. But yeah, I'd like to inflict that upon her. I think she'd quite enjoy that.
So that would be more fun for you or more fun for her?
She'd talk about it a lot. I feel like it's one of those films you go, oh, have you seen what we've watched the other night? Like she's very, she'll go out and talk to her friends about it. Like I've made and written the film for her to watch. Go, have you seen what Georgie's shown me? It is like the director made it, but yeah, that'd be a good one.
Does she like folk horror then?
I think that's why I want to show it to her, because she hasn't seen a lot of folk horror. She's more like a haunted house kind of gal. She likes a bit of mystery there. But she does like blood, guts and gore. She loves, I know it's not horror, but she loves all the John Wick films. Absolutely hooked on them. She loves all the action, and she'll be like shouting at telly like, yeah, go on, do him over, get him. I got home from like a film shoot covered in blood once, and she was watching this program. She go, oh, it looks like you, didn't it? She's just got the nightmare.
That's pretty cool though, to have your dad, be into movies like that as opposed to just watching Murder, She Wrote or old episodes of Faulty Towers or something. Like she's like into it.
Don't get me wrong, she's watching Bargain Hunt at the moment. She's still got that side to her. But she does like, yeah,
Nothing
it's nice
wrong with
to
that.
have exactly. It's nice to have someone who appreciates both sides of the coin.
So as long you got Saltburn and you have Bargain Hunt, there's a wide spectrum that she's doing more than most grandmothers that I know. So
she is indeed. She's holding up the side for the team.
Now, how did you find Horror on Sea this year? I mean, did you have? I've heard so much about it from Lauren and Lauren and Tony's experience there, and I've had a chance to talk with so many people that were involved in Horror on Sea, and my plan right now is to make it out for next year's because I just want to be a part of it. Like it just seems like a great thing. But how did you find this year's experience and this year's show?
You know what? It was so great. I wish I got to see more of the projects that were there. I had to like nip off to work in between, and that was a shame. But apart from that, everything else was just amazing. Like the conversations you have, they're so great, and everyone just gets what you mean. Like if you say, or like, I love being covered in blood at 3 a.m. Not one person bats an eyelid, but you say that in Tesco's and everyone's eyeballing you, like everyone's just so accepting and willing to chat about things. And I mean, even getting into like, not debates as such, but just having open conversations. Like if I was to mention Saltburn, there'd be someone there who's like, you know what, I really didn't like it. And you'd be like, oh, cool, why is that? and they'd explain, and you kind of have like a good conversation about it without it getting too feisty. But then to also like things like horoscopes, so Rabbit and Python were in horoscopes, and it was so lovely to see how everything was brought together and what everyone else had done, because you work on these projects and you kind of think, oh yeah, that's it, that's done, but you don't remember all the other people who have put work into it. So it's really nice to come together and sort of see what they interpreted from the brief and what they've done with it. That was really fun.
Cool. And do you have a favorite thing that you've done so far that you hope everyone gets the chance to see you in, that you're like, this is my favorite thing I've done?
You know what? I think When the Sun Stands Still.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Do you know when it's coming out? Sorry, I'll let you say more, but do you know when?
No. You know what? I think it's supposed to be start of this year. I'm not 100% sure. It would never have been a thing that initially I would have said, oh, it's my favorite thing. But after watching it, I really enjoyed the process of making it. But after watching it, yeah, it's a bit of a mind warping experience. But I know. Have you seen it, Lauren?
Oh,
sorry. Have you seen it, Lauren?
Yeah, because Tony's in it, and the director very kindly let all the actors see it, and so Tony let me see his version. But no, Chris, I think was going to ask you to tell us more about it.
Well,
tell us about
what's the synopsis of it? Like, what's the plot, I guess, without giving away too much?
Sure. Trying to think of a way to not.
I have no idea how you're going to do this.
This is the hardest part about acting, is talking about the projects and not giving it away. I think it centers around a young girl who goes missing called Diana, and she just disappears off the face of the earth, and her stepdad is searching for her. He's trying to get her back, and all of a sudden she turns up again, as if it, like a cloud of smoke. But she's completely mute. She doesn't say anything. It doesn't even seem like she's registering anything that's being said. And then it's the work of the stepdad and a detective to kind of figure out exactly what's going on. It's really like sci-fi heavy. I should probably mention it, considering he's my boyfriend. There's a spiritual like detective in there as well, who like comes in to try and help figure out exactly what's going on. But I was in it, and I watched it like I'd never read the script before. It was really cool to watch.
Sounds great. I mean, it sounds like a good concept. So that's awesome.
Definitely.
You had some, I'm trying not to give anything away, but you had some really incredible and bizarre scenes that you had to film for this. Is there one like moment of filming that stands out in your mind?
You know what? There is, and it's not the scene that you would expect.
Oh, okay.
It was because there were a few scenes that when I read the script, I was like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I'm going to be too awkward to do this. Like, it was quite. And I felt incredibly safe on the set. Like, James Edward Newton, who directed, he's such a lovely guy. Everyone who was there was so lovely. But there were a couple of times that I was like, do I have the confidence to film these scenes? But the one scene that really stands out to me was we were in the middle of a forest, and James had very much said beforehand, he was like, I've got a very specific style that I'm going for with this film. It's very much a case of trust the process. Like, I know exactly what I want. It's going to look weird. You might not feel like you look particularly glamorous, but it's going to be okay. It will work out. And from the get-go, I was like, I trust you. Like, this is going to be great. And we were stood in this forest, and I was looking up, and he had this camera, and he was just shaking it below. I was like, Gertrude, the double chin, is going to get an outing then. Great. And I was stood here thinking, like, I totally trust you, but how are you going to use this footage? Like, he was just shaking it. And watching it in the film, it was great, and it worked so well. So yeah, trust James Newton in everything he does, because the man's a genius. He was great.
We need to get that clip and send it to him, so that when he sends an email, instead of a signature, it can just be like play, and you push play. Trust James Newton in everything that he does.
That's going to be like his voicemail now.
Yep. That sounds exciting. I've got to get out. I've got to figure out a way to get to see these movies. Like, that's why I've got to come out to these festivals, because it does sound amazing and sounds like a great. I like the fact that, like, something that's not weird is the wrong word, but just different than like what you're used to, and then it kind of how it gets all put together. Like, I've started to get a glimpse into that world with how people make things, and I'm like, I don't understand it. I just see the finished product, and then you're just like, oh, that's cool, and you don't realize all the stuff that goes in and the thought process behind the creative minds of it. So very cool. Like, I want to see that for sure.
Totally. And you have to come over and like be in some projects as well. It'd be so much fun.
I'm really good at pushing rain off of a tent. I can hold down a pole. I'm not sure the acting part. I'll leave that to people that know what they're doing. So I'm happy to help behind the scenes.
I'm convinced you'd make an excellent corpse. You can die in something. Dying's so much fun on screen.
It's great.
I probably will get hooked. Is what'll happen. Is I'll be like, I want to get one death scene, and I'll be like, I got to get killed 3 more times. Like, I have till Sunday. Let's do this.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but I imagine a lot of people who listen to this. We do have a lot of lovely people who listen who are part of the indie scene, but probably also a lot of people who don't. And so, what's it like being a full-time actor in a world where you're not a big, massive Angelina Jolie, my people will call your people. What's it like to be an actor?
It's hilarious. The amount of people who, if you're in a conversation, I had it last Christmas. My nan did like a little Christmas Eve get together, and one of the neighbours from down the road came up. I never actually met her before. And she came in, she was like, oh, so what do you do? I said, and I just got back from Panto, so I was covered in glitter. I looked like a maniac. And I ran upstairs, got like a top on, and just came back downstairs. And I said, so what do you do? I said, oh, I'm an actor. And she said, right, like, but what do you do for work? And I was like, no, I act for work. She's like, right, but I haven't seen you in anything. I was like, no, I work in like a lot of indie horror. Like, it's quite a small niche like community. And she's like, oh, right, because it's really hard to be an actor. She was like educating me on the industry and basically trying to like call my bluff on actually acting. And like, don't get me wrong, there's months where like I got hit with like a pretty big tax bill at the start of this year, and it swallows everything up, and you're like, crap, I can't continue to do this work. It does make you kind of think, or should I go and get like a muggle job? But equally, it's a lot of fun.
Do you ever just want to tell people when they're trying to question you, be like, look, I can't feel this hand because I was handcuffed to a bed, kidnapped in Ireland?
It's definitely a fun story. I like to use it to get out of conversations. If something's getting a bit awkward, I'm like, let's kill the vibe more. Let's tell the numb finger story and get the hell out of there.
What were you doing on May 18th? Because I'll tell you what I was doing. Do you find when you tell people that you're in indie horror, do you find you said that she was, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question. She was trying to tell you how hard acting was, but do you ever find people that judge a genre?
Oh yeah, especially indie horror. Okay. I feel like anyone who isn't open-minded to it thinks that it's just a group of kids with a camera going, oh, let's make a film and let's cover people in blood. And without meaning to sound like pretentious, there's an art form to it. There's styles and there's ways of creating these projects, and most people might not understand, but like, I mean, like, even things in Horror on Sea where they're sort of focusing on video nasties and these kind of genres within horror, 99% of the general public would be like, what the hell is this? But that's why there's a film festival based around independent horror films. I mean, I think it's getting better, like with things like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and even projects like, I remember going to see Don't Worry Darling, the one with Florence Pugh and Harry Styles in. It's not, I mean, I don't know if it's fully termed as like a horror film, but I feel like people are becoming more open to the idea of like more graphic horror within films, if they're not like a diehard horror fan. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of judgment around that. I feel like they either think you're a nutcase or you have to only like horror and nothing else.
What would you recommend those people watch?
Ooh.
If you were trying to turn them, is there something either mainstream, indie, is there something that you would recommend somebody that is anti that genre, that already like looks down on, that's trying to change their viewpoint?
You know what? I think I'd recommend something that is more realistic. So when I was prepping to do the Art of Abuse, I tend to find I watch a lot of films based around the same kind of vibe that the films that I'm doing. I would say watch something like I watched a film called The Cleveland Abduction about the 3 women that went missing in Ohio. And I think that was, I mean, it was horrific to watch, but it wasn't necessarily termed as a horror film because it was a true story. And I think when people can watch those kind of things and go, oh wow, that's horrendous, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty much what horror is. It's just it's showing kind of things that actually do happen. I think it can make people a bit more open-minded to it. I mean, I've had family members who were like, I don't watch horror films. I've got like a few family members who are quite heavily Christian and they won't watch anything horror-based. And they've seen projects like that and they've gone, oh, that was horrendous. I'm like, you do know that some, not all horror films, sometimes there is just mindless violence, but some horror projects are to kind of showcase that and to show that actually these things do happen. This is how some people unfortunately meet their end. Yeah, I'd say maybe projects like that.
Okay. Do you have a movie that you would recommend for someone who's never seen a horror movie, doesn't have that judgment? They just know that they don't like being scared, right? So like everyone knows that one person that's like, I just don't want to be scared to watch a movie. Do you have a movie that you would recommend? I know The Grudge you have to go back and watch if you haven't finished that. So you can't say that one, but do you have another one that's out there?
Oh, see, I suppose it depends on if I'm being nice to them or if I'm being really horrible.
Oh,
I want two answers now.
Okay. I'd say go and watch, like, if you kind of don't want to be scared but want to see a bit more like mindless slasher horror. I mean, some sort of horror comedy. I mean, like something like Zombieland or even like Scary Movie. Like my partner's not really into horror films massively, but he loves the Scary Movie franchise. I'm like, if you can deal with some of the horror on there, you can deal with stuff in actual horror films. If I'm being horrible, the Bogeyman film by Rob Savage that I think it came out last, that was great. It really made me jump in a lot of places I just wasn't expecting. Like the lighting design on that was awesome. You can really lose yourself in that. So yeah.
Okay.
I like that though, because I sometimes you sort of like, you know what, I bet if you liked the story enough, you could handle being really scared. And so sometimes it is a really scary movie, but it's because the movie keeps you in it so much that you don't mind.
Definitely. If you can like invest yourself in it, the scary parts don't matter as much because you're like, oh, I just need to see how this ends.
Totally.
Now, what is I wanted to ask this earlier. I'm going to go back and ask it now. You like zombie movies. You said you like comedy, like horror zombie movies. Have you seen, 2-part question, have you seen the movie Cooties? And what are your thoughts on killing children in a movie?
Oh, I haven't seen Cooties. I will have to give it a watch. But thoughts on killing children. I'm so going to lose my teaching job.
In a movie, not just killing children.
I think if it works for the plot, then go for it. Like it's. I think often it can I suppose infanticide is a little bit more shocking in general. So the idea of killing off a child somehow, especially if they're like a brain-eating monster, get rid of them. That kids can be annoying at the best of times, but when they're trying to bite your kneecaps, like set them off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it. We watched Cockneys vs. Zombies when we were doing that, and there's a scene with like the mom in the pram and she's pushing the child. But Cooties is a bunch of teachers. It has Elijah Wood and the guy who plays Dwight in The Office. It's got a bunch of actors that you would have seen, but the children at this middle school become zombies.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna
So
have to go
that's
watch
the
that.
movie. I don't know how else to. That's it.
Especially because you're a teacher, you might find it quite cathartic after that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the horror equivalent. I remember doing a show of Annie, and I played Miss Hannigan, and I was teaching at the time. And I go to rehearsals and just shout at a load of random kids, and it was great. So actually, maybe doing like a zombie film in a school, you're right. It could work.
If you're onto something, this is like just something they should. They have those break rooms. Well, I don't know if they have those in England, where you could just go and throw dishes or like go and just hit computers and hit glass and break. They should just have rooms where you get to throw like zombie children. That's not. I guess you can't really throw children, but you can make a movie where it's they've captured these zombies and you just get to go throw them around and hit them against the wall. That'd be fun.
I'm so invested in it. Let's write it. Let's do it. Let's create a film.
4 people would like it and everybody else would pick it, but it would be great. It would be great.
Sometimes that's a hit.
This is true. If we didn't have a career before, it's ended after that film. But you know what? It was fun doing it.
I just wanted to solidify the fact that I have no future in this business. Here's my movie.
Georgie, this has been so much fun. I'm aware we've had you for about an hour now, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I always like to, at the end, give a chance to say if you have anything else you're excited about watching, about people looking for, whether it's your work or someone else's. We want to give you a chance to talk about it.
Thank you. Honestly, anything at Horror on Sea, especially stuff that Tiz do. Tiz films are they're just genius. So keep an eye out for them because they're gonna go places. But yeah, I suppose just keep supporting the independent horror community because they're a bunch of legends, and they deserve all the love.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on.
Yes.
It's been a lot of fun. Christy, do you have any last questions before I wind us up?
No, I just want to thank you for coming on. I mean, it was a great talk. That hour flew by. So thank you for coming on, and we should do it again sometime after some of the movies we've filmed. We'll come back and talk about Rapunzel, and we'll start brainstorming the throwing children around. It'd be a good movie.
No, definitely. And thank you so much for having me. It's been so lovely to chat to you both.
It's been really great. And thank you, of course, our listeners for joining us. This has been the London Horror Movie Club. If you want to share your thoughts about this episode, please head to our Facebook or YouTube pages. We're grateful to Kukurbit, who made our music. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time for the London Horror Movie Club.